Starting at $25 per square foot installed. That's lower than most big box stores. These prices are some of the lowest around. Granite, quartz, marble, and quartzite, all starting at $25 per square foot installed. Call 801-486-1700 or visit halfpricegranite.com. Half Price Granite, affordable luxury.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT. GOAT, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Lynn Thomas.
Well, we're looking at a fresh crash out in the Twilla area. This is actually, 900 South. It's northbound Main at 900 South in Twilla. Minor slowing. In the Salt Lake Valley, 33rd South, a major artery is jammed up between State and I-15. No construction that I can see. In Utah County, the ramps are pretty busy as you make your way at Pioneer Crossing. And we still have a crash up in Ogden at Harrison Boulevard. That is near Weber State. That is southbound Harrison Boulevard at 32nd on the right shoulder. A little bit of slowing in the area. Renew your smile with Grandpa's Dental. Grandpa's Dental offers cosmetic and routine dentistry. Visit grandpasdental.com for a location near you. That's grandpasdental.com. I'm Len Thomas in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather. Well, the haze and fog have cleared up over much of the Wasatch Front. Highs will be in the 40s coming up today and tomorrow, in the mid-30s if there's still haze around. There's a likelihood of rain on Saturday, though, that could help clear the air, possibly snow on Sunday. And right now, 37 degrees, mostly cloudy in some areas, but clear on the southern Wasatch Front. And right now, again, 37 degrees. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Today, Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, the first woman to serve on the Supreme Court of the United States of America, was laid to rest. A number of the nation's leaders, including President Biden and Chief Justice John Roberts, attended the funeral, where they paid tribute to an amazing life and an extraordinary legacy. They outlined important principles that drove this extraordinary individual. These are principles that we think are worth thinking again about. So let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, as all of you know, I firmly believe that endings matter, and I think the power and importance of funerals is not necessarily just in the comfort they provide or the memories they invoke of the departed, but the real power and importance of funerals is what they inspire us to become. Better individuals, better neighbors, better citizens. And the funeral today, held at the historic Washington National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., included many of those principles in the life of Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, as we mentioned, the first woman to serve on the Supreme Court. And so for the next hour, we're going to dive deep into her life, into her legacy. We'll listen to some of the things that President Biden shared. I thought this was President Biden at his best. He is always strong in these emotional moments where he has earned empathy, having lost a spouse, having lost a child. So he understands that component, and I think he did an extraordinary job today. Kudos to President Biden. We'll also look at some of the conversation from the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, who also spoke at the funeral today. And then coming up at 1:35, we're actually going to go back to a conversation I had with former D.C. Circuit Judge Thomas Griffith, a friend of the show, and we'll go back to a conversation I had with him and his connection with Justice Sandra Day O'Connor. So stay with us during this hour. We're going to get into some important principles that hopefully will not just give you a better understanding of who Justice O'Connor was, but the principles that enabled her to accomplish so much and to have such an outsized influence. And even more than that, I hope it inspires you with some principles that'll help you be a little bit better today, tomorrow, and into the new year. So let's begin with President Biden. President Biden began by revisiting the time of Justice O'Connor's nomination to the Supreme Court when he played an important role in the United States Senate.
On a Wednesday in September 1981, the Senate Judiciary Committee came to order. I was the ranking member of that committee, and the day's business was momentous. The nomination of Sandra Day O'Connor to become the first woman in American history to serve as a Supreme Court Justice on the United States Supreme Court. Announcing her nomination earlier that summer, President Reagan described her as, and I quote, "a person for all seasons." And it was a person for all seasons who we saw at that hearing, and the Americans and the world would see through her extraordinary service as a justice, and I might add, as a citizen.
I thought that was important that President Biden included that last portion, that we didn't just see her as a leader, as a member of the highest court in the land, but as a citizen. It was important what she did after she left the Supreme Court and why she left the Supreme Court ultimately. We'll come back to that in just a moment. President Biden went on to talk about her dedication to equal justice under the law.
The High Court, she said in her opening statement, and I quote, "is a body to which all Americans look for the ultimate protection of their rights. It is the United States Supreme Court that we all turn when we seek that which we want most from our government, equal justice under law," end of quote. Equal justice under law is the noblest aspiration of humankind, and the aspiration of Sandra Day O'Connor, one that she pursued her whole life.
Now, I want you to lean in and listen in to President Biden. I don't say that very often, but today, in this description of President Biden, of the former Justice of the Supreme Court, Sandra Day O'Connor, he talked about the driving principles that enabled her to do so much, to accomplish so much, to be a friend to so many, and to leave a legacy that will truly last for generations to come. President Biden talked about how these principles, her principles that she adopted and lived, how they helped her to break down walls and be a model for women in law and for people everywhere.
One need not agree with all her decisions in order to recognize that her principles were deeply held and of the highest order, and that her desire for civility was genuine, and her trust in the capacity of human institutions to make life better is what this world was abiding. And how she embodied such attributes under such pressure and scrutiny helped empower generations of women in every part of American life, including the court itself, helping to open doors, secure freedoms, and prove that a woman can not only do anything a man can do, but many times do it a heck of a lot better.
I think the president got that one absolutely right. And I just want to go back because I think these principles that Sandra Day O'Connor embodied and lived and modeled for all of us are important. The president said that you don't have to agree with all of her decisions to recognize that her principles were deeply held and of the highest order, that she had a genuine desire for civility, that she had this trust in institutions to make life better. And then I love the fact that he pointed out that she not only believed in these attributes, but she lived them under immense pressure and incredible scrutiny. That's the test. Remember, a person is not honest just because they haven't had a chance to lie. It is under pressure, under scrutiny, that we find out if what we profess to believe is what we actually believe because we choose to live it. And then, of course, her influence went well beyond just empowering a generation of women, particularly in the law. But she went on to make sure that there were not just open doors, but there were freedoms secured, and that there were opportunities for everyone, and that justice under the law driving all of that. Finally, from President Biden, he talked about the importance of Justice O'Connor and the focus she had, particularly after she left the bench, on civic life and making sure that we are indeed passing that on to the next generation.
Beyond the bench, Justice O'Connor valued the civic life of the nation, in our schools, in our community centers, in families, and in our friendships. Yes, America is the land of rugged individualists, adventurers, and entrepreneurs. But she knew no person is an island. In the fabric of our nation, we're all inextricably linked. And for the America to thrive, America must see themselves not as enemies, but as partners in the great work of deciding our collective destiny. That's the essence of our national experience. The sacred cause of democracy she devoted her life to, one that we must continue.
And that was President Biden from the historic National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. today. We're going to stay with the conversation and the tributes to Justice Sandra Day O'Connor as she was laid to rest today. When we come back, we'll pick up the conversation. We'll hear a little bit from what Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, had to say about Justice Sandra Day O'Connor and the many principles and lessons. Stay with us for this entire hour as we talk about not only a life well lived and a legacy that is certainly preserved, but the principles that made it all possible. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson.
I don't remember anything I got as a present growing up.
Oh boy, I do.
I only remember the way it made me feel.
A Christmas memory from KSL News Radio.
I'll tell you, the one gift that comes to mind for me was a Stingray bicycle.
Oh, really? I remember those.
We're talking things in the 60s that people won't relate to today.
I do for sure.
Man, I can remember that like it was yesterday.
Merry Christmas from Tim and Amanda and everyone at KSL News Radio.
Kidney cars, donate your car today. Tax write-off, hip, 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 hooray. Kidney cars, give your car away. Tax write-off, and you will save today.
The staff of the National Kidney Foundation of Utah would like to wish you a merry holiday season and remind you that it is better to give than receive, but not better than giving and receiving. For example, if you give your car to the Kidney Foundation, you may get a tax deduction. Call 1-800-TOW-CARS with a K. That's 1-800-TOWKARS. To donate your used car to the Kidney Foundation, call 1-800-TOW-CARS with a K. That's 1-800-TOWKARS.
Kidney cars, donate your car today. Tax write-off, hip, 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 hooray!
Call 1-800-TOW-CARS with a K.
In 400 AD, a forgotten time in ancient America, warrior prophet Moroni must preserve the history of his fallen nation while being hunted by a ruthless tyrant.
Where is the brave general now?
From Freestyle Releasing and Great Scott Entertainment comes
The memory of my God,
The Oath.
my faith and my freedom, my wife and my son.
The Oath, now playing in theaters. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13. More information is available at oathmovie.com.
Deb, you may not believe this, but I actually do like to eat healthy food. I feel better when I eat healthy, and I do feel full.
I want you to start off 2024 the right way. Log on to fedupkitchen.com, and you can order clean, macro-based, low-calorie meals Not only that, they have treats and green drinks.
And they're prepared fresh in their Salt Lake City kitchen.
Order today, and they'll be ready for pickup or delivery tomorrow.
It's healthy eating made easy with Fed Up Kitchen.
You can save time, you can save money, and get results with their delicious meals. And like we said, they are made fresh daily.
And because it's the holidays, we want to make sure there's a little gift for you. You can save 20% on your first order. All you have to do is use the promo code KSL at fedupkitchen.com.
That's right. Go to fedupkitchen.com, put in promo code KSL, and you're going to get 20% off your first order.
Take the guesswork out of healthy eating. Go to fedupkitchen.com and use the promo code KSL.
This time of year can be a lot, and it's natural to feel some sadness or anxiety about it. But adding something new and positive to your life can counteract some of those feelings. Therapy can be a bright spot amid all of the stress and change. Something to look forward to make you feel grounded, and to give you the tools to manage everything going on. Learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/Salt Lake today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Salt Lake, and get 10% off your first month.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, there's a chance, just a chance, we'll see a white Christmas this year. Second, UHP troopers have another big fentanyl bust, this time near Cedar City. And third, dozens of protesters demanding a ceasefire in Gaza have been arrested in Washington, D.C. Right now, 37 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
We're staying with the conversation as former United States Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor was laid to rest today. The funeral at the historic National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. President Biden, we covered his remarks, which I thought were especially powerful today, and focusing on the principles that really drove an extraordinary life in Sandra Day O'Connor. And I want to pick up with some of the comments that came from Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts. He began by talking about his first experience with former Justice O'Connor and what he learned about her approach to challenges, really telling.
It has been said that the Supreme Court is like a family composed entirely of in-laws. 42 years ago, I was assigned to help then Judge O'Connor join that family. It was my first day in a new job at the Justice Department, and I was proud to be part of her team. I thought our group did a pretty good job. After all, the justice was confirmed 99-0, and we must have had something to do with that. Only many years later was I told that she thought I had been slow in getting material to her. I should have learned that when she had a challenge or responsibility before her, her approach was simple and direct. Get it done.
Get it done. That is a great principle for all of us today. I've been leading into that thought of late that doing your job is in your job description. I think Justice O'Connor really understood that. Just get it done. Get it done right. Get it done well. And then move on. Chief Justice Roberts went on to describe Justice O'Connor's unique approach as a justice on the Supreme Court.
Justices have many different styles on the bench. Some like the back and forth of debates. Others pose unusual hypotheticals. Some badger counsel to get concessions. Others spell out a particular theory at length and ask for comment. Now, all this is fine and good, but Justice O'Connor was different. After the advocate had gotten through only a couple sentences, the justice would jump in before her colleagues could with a well-prepared question. The question was clear, direct, even enunciated carefully. It went to the heart of the lawyer's case with no fluff.
I love that. Getting to the essence of things. I can't think of a more important quality for someone sitting on the Supreme Court of the United States. And clearly, Justice O'Connor felt that that was an important thing, not just from the bench, that she would not only ask good questions, she would listen intently and then follow up with clear, direct, well thought out follow-up questions that would really get to the heart of the case. Think of that in our own lives, in our own work environment, in our own community conversations, in our own families. If we listen just a little bit better and a little more intently, and then we had the ability to offer clear, direct, well thought out follow-up questions to get to the essence of the issue. I think that's a principle worth emulating and celebrating in the life of Sandra Day O'Connor. Justice Roberts went on to describe with a little bit of humor the fact that he was chosen to succeed Sandra Day O'Connor to the United States Supreme Court. And here's how he described her reaction to his nomination.
Another example came the day I was nominated to succeed Justice O'Connor. Reporters had asked her what she thought of the nomination. She had nice things to say, but ended by noting that the only problem was I didn't wear a skirt. My initial reaction was, of course, everything's negotiable. But fortunately, it didn't come to that.
And there is more humor, I think, behind the scenes there on the Supreme Court. We often see them stoic in the robes up on that big bench. And that can be a little intimidating, but it is nice to know there's some humor behind all of that, which is important. Chief Justice Roberts also spoke about how Justice O'Connor worked while on the Supreme Court and how it actually impacted the next generation.
Younger people today cannot understand what it was like before Justice O'Connor in what now seems a distant past. That distance is a measure of time, but is also a measure of Justice O'Connor's life and work. In nearly a quarter century on the court, she was a strong, influential, and iconic jurist. Her leadership shaped the legal profession, making it obvious that judges are both women and men. The time when women were not on the bench seemed so far away because Justice O'Connor was so good when she was on the bench.
I love that. And I love that the distance as we look back. And it's hard for some of us to think about that young people today have no concept of what it was like to not have a woman on the Supreme Court. And part of that, as Justice Roberts described, was because Sandra Day O'Connor was so good at what she did while she was in the role and on the bench. Chief Justice Roberts also discussed everything she had to do with breaking a lot of those glass ceilings.
She was so successful that the barriers she broke down are almost unthinkable today. But not so in her lifetime. Sandra Day O'Connor had to study and launch a career in the law when most men in the established profession did not want women lawyers, let alone judges. She had to find her own style to cajole, persuade, and unite colleagues when there was no example to follow for the first female Senate leader in the country. She had to ignore slights and work to bring people together in social, professional, and political life. She had to demonstrate excellence as the 102nd member of the Supreme Court, all the while setting a model as the first woman on the job.
So important, and it is worth noting and re-noting that Sandra Day O'Connor finished towards the top of her class. In fact, I think there were only one or two that were ahead of her in that class, and yet she had no offers to work at a law firm other than as a legal secretary. That's how far things have come, that someone could finish at the top of their class in law school and not be offered a job as to do anything other than be a secretary. Finally, Chief Justice Roberts described an important aspect of Sandra Day O'Connor, her work beyond the bench.
She had to fight cancer and Alzheimer's in public ways that helped others and that promoted dignity and respect. She had to speak and teach and inspire through the country and around the world about the necessity of judicial independence, so our generation and the next would have a roadmap to safeguard it with all the gifts God has given us. She had to be both the most important woman in government and also a devoted wife who, with her devoted husband, John, raised 3 sons of whom they were so very proud. All this and more she had to do, and she got it done.
Just get it done. That was really the hallmark of Sandra Day O'Connor, an important life, an important legacy. And I love all of these nuances in terms of what she did. Many people don't recognize all that she did in terms of civic education, all of the work that she did in foreign countries and helping them as they tried to establish constitutions and balance checks and balances and the rule of law. She was very influential in many other places. In fact, we'll have a little bit of my conversation with Thomas Griffith that we had a few weeks ago, talking about some of that international experience and really taking those branches of government and the rule of law into so many countries as they tried to get their own path to freedom really marching forward. Well, we are going to stay with the conversation here. We are going to keep things going. In fact, we're going to be joined at 1:35 by the United States Ambassador to Turkey, Jeff Flake, who happens to be listening in and is going to join us with his own recollections and connections with Justice O'Connor coming up after bottom of the hour news. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. Utah Highway Patrol arrested 2 women Sunday near Cedar City after seizing 25 pounds of suspected fentanyl pills. A probable cause statement says the women were stopped on I-15 after a trooper observed a dark-tinted window on the driver's side, but not the passenger side. They searched the car with the pill after a dog indicated the presence of drugs. A group representing tech companies from TikTok to Travelocity is suing over Utah's social media regulations like age verification, curfews, and parental permission requirements.
I'm being told by these companies and a few First Amendment lawyers out there that you have no choice. You just have to let the kids die.
That's Utah Governor Spencer Cox back in March. According to the Salt Lake Tribune, Attorney General Sean Reyes' office says it's reviewing the lawsuit, but remains focused on the law's intent of protecting kids from social media dangers. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. No deal yet is how Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer describes bipartisan talks behind closed doors on more funding for Ukraine and Israel, while also addressing border security.
The bottom line, both Democrats and Republicans understand that there's more work to do to pass legislation protecting America's security and the security of the Western world.
The Senate is still in session. Members of the House have gone home for the holiday. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day now 192 points. The NASDAQ is up 77 as we near the close of trading today. And our KSL weather looks like a lot of the haze that we had this morning is dissipated. That's next. KSL News Time at 1:31.
Early mornings can be hard enough, just getting yourself going.
We try to make it a little easier with news and weather from comfortable, trusted anchors and reporters.
Join us on Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9
on KSL News Radio.
If you or someone you know is having thoughts of suicide or experiencing a mental health or substance use crisis, 988 provides 24/7 compassionate support and connection to trained counselors. When you call, text, or chat 988, you'll be quickly connected to trained counselors who will listen to your concerns, provide support, and connect you to additional resources if needed. There is hope. The Lifeline works. You are not alone. For 24/7 support, just call, text, or chat 988.
If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. The IRS just rolled out a new program to help struggling taxpayers more easily resolve their tax problems. It's called the Taxpayer Relief Initiative, and it opens up powerful new options for people looking to get back on the right track with the IRS. And no one knows this program like the professionals at Optima Tax Relief, America's most trusted tax resolution company. They've resolved over $1 billion in tax debt for their clients and have the expertise and experience to help you. One easy call to Optima can start the process, helping to put an end to your worries of wage garnishment, asset seizure, and other aggressive IRS actions. Make today the beginning of your fresh start with the IRS. Call the experts at Optima Tax Relief now for your free confidential consultation.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Len Thomas.
Well, Dan, we have a fresh crash. This is in Centerville. I'm not seeing too much in the way of delays here through Davis County and Centerville. This is where the crash is. It's southbound I-15 at 1400 North. And further north of this, a crash been there for a while, southbound Harrison Boulevard at 32nd Street. On the right shoulder, that's causing just a little bit of slowing at Weber State University. In Utah County, a crash northbound I-15 north of Center Street on the right shoulder. Again, no delays. Mortgage rates have fallen. Lower your payment. Find out more at Loans by Rick. LoansByRick.com. Quality housing lender, MLS 287106. That's LoansByRick.com. Len Thomas, the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather. As we get toward the weekend here, it looks like things are going to clear up even more than they have already. We've lost a lot of the haze and fog that was troubling us early. And right now it's 39 degrees with a little bit of haze still. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, if you're just joining us, we've been covering throughout the show today. Former Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor was laid to rest. Her funeral service at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. Of course, President Biden spoke. Chief Justice of the Supreme Court John Roberts, among others. And as Sandra Day O'Connor was the first woman to serve on the Supreme Court, she left behind an incredible, impactful legacy. We've been focusing on the lives she connected with and the principles that she taught to all of us that are worth not only celebrating on a day like today, but actually emulating in our own lives, our own families, and communities. Someone who knew Justice O'Connor, had a connection there, is the United States Ambassador to Turkey, Jeff Flake, who happens to be around and was listening to the show and is dialing in. And Ambassador Flake, welcome back to the state, and we're glad you're here, and thanks for joining us today.
Hey, it's good to be here, and nice being on, Boyd.
So give us you sent me a beautiful shot that had you and Senator John McCain and Justice O'Connor. Give us a little backstory there.
Well, that was just about, I think, 6 or 7 years ago when the Gilbert LDS Temple was dedicated during the open house. And she expressed a desire to go through it, and so did John McCain. And so we were happy to take them through. And that picture was taken just outside, and it was a wonderful day. But I count her among as a great friend and certainly a proud Arizonan.
Yeah, as she was a proud Arizonan, and what a great connection there to have both Senator McCain and Justice O'Connor there at the Temple for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints there in Gilbert. Give us a little sense of that as you went through. I'm sure that sparked a few conversations and deepened your connection with Justice O'Connor.
Well, the interesting thing is she grew up on the Lazy Bee, a cattle ranch, And I grew up on a cattle ranch in northern Arizona, the F-Bar. And it was so fascinating to read her book and to see that she had similar stories to our stories, my dad's stories of growing up on the cattle ranch. And just I always identified with her so much. She was certainly just an incredible, down-to-earth person who never let her fame and her, just trailblazing attitude, get to her head. That's what I always appreciated.
Yeah, so important and so interesting. She really held on to that ranch and that Western experience, and taking that to a court that tends to be dominated by East Coast thinking. She really kind of took that as a badge of honor. Give us some sense from your perspective in terms of what that did and how that influenced her time on the Supreme Court.
Well, obviously, like I said, she was a trailblazer, being the first woman, but she just brought everybody thought common sense to the court that was just so endearing, and she never lost that, no matter how long she was there, and it was just that's what made her so popular, and why so many people, I think, identified with her to the end.
Yeah, no question about that. And Ambassador, you've had an opportunity to be on a lot of the sides and branches of government, and in your role now, of course, as United States Ambassador to Turkey, your time in both the House of Representatives and in the United States Senate. You've seen a lot of things and the impact that the lawmaking has on the court and vice versa. Give us just kind of your sense in terms of Justice O'Connor's role in that balance of power and making sure that everybody stays in their lane.
Well, part of what made her such an effective justice is because she had been a politician before. She was in the state Senate, and she understood the role of the court, I think, like few do. And so I think that's what made her so effective and allowed her to bring such common sense, and knowing the rulings that came from the court, emanated from the court, what they would mean to state and local governments and to individuals. And so she had a background that just was just incredible for the court and incredible for the time that she was named.
Yeah, no question about that. And then finally on Justice O'Connor, any other memories or recollections or things that you saw in her in terms of a set of principles that you think we all ought to maybe think about or think a little bit more about today?
Well, humility. I obviously going back and forth to Washington for 18 years in the House and Senate, I shared a few flights with her. She would go back to Arizona. And this was mostly after her retirement, so to speak. She wasn't very retired. She was working pretty hard. But I remember one time, when she was still pretty feeble, and with a cane and whatnot, and she got on, and I had a better seat. Tried to with her. None of it. Anyway, she was very humble and.
Before I let you go, just a quick sense representing the world. Give us you going on that there are a lot.
Ukraine. Important that
The fact of the matter is that this war was begun, and I get it, Israel is not perfect, but this war was begun by Hamas, whose stated purpose is not only to destroy the state of Israel, but to murder as many Jews as possible as they do so. So the fact is, being morally resolute means knowing that the two sides in this fight are in no way equal, and being compassionate means maintaining the ability to cry over the innocents who die on either side of any line. And we all have to be able to do that. That is our obligation as human beings.
That is the obligation. And as I read your piece the other day, Rabbi, the thing that kept coming back to me, and the way you framed this, I thought was so significant, that resolute component that you talked about, that moral resolution, to me, that moral clarity of good and evil. And when you actually combined that moral clarity with the compassion that you've just described to us, you actually get to a new space. You get to this place of moral imagination where we can do something completely different in terms of how do we create a better path forward.
I think that's exactly right. And it begins by being willing, I love that phrase, right, of moral imagination, of being able to imagine the dichotomies we currently inhabit are not the only way it needs to be.